Good morning, team. It is Tuesday, May 18th. I'm Amy Core, and I'm actually live in California right now. And I left Kevin Van Eck back at the Goose Island office. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited because today we are going to be doing another interview with two great brokers. So grab your coffee, your tea, your power smoothie, and let's jump into the next episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
That's right. Good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Make sure your cup of coffee is full. And if you joined us last week for the Opportunity Summit, awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember that the recordings are all on Ad Academy. So if you did miss it or want to watch Lance or Sherry or Jesse again, you can absolutely do that. But today on Coffee, as Amy mentioned, we're back to agent interviews. We've got two amazing brokers here with us today that are going to share their expertise and what they're seeing in the market, how they're adapting to what's happening in the market, and we'll all be able to pull something back from that. So let's get with the introductions then.
Yes, so we've got K.C. Lau with us this morning. He's out of the Bucktown office. He's been with that property since 2007, but got into the business in 2004. So welcome, K.C. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Amy. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me. Hi, at World. Good to see everyone.
Hey, K.C., I got a question for you. Okay. I know you have a strong sneaker game. Can you show us what kicks you got today?
Oh, man, I'm sorry I don't have like that part on, but I do have these local design shoes. They're loafers, but they're Chicago Bulls inspired. I got a white and red sole for the Chicago Bulls home jersey. So I thought that was pretty dope. When I saw it, I had to cop. I had to. You know, I came here. I was born in China, but I was raised here. Came here at 4. Diehard Chicago, never left. Bulls all the way.
Awesome. Go Bulls. Thanks for sharing. And then our second guest is Yvette Dupree. And she started in the business in 2004 as well and came to At Properties in 2009. And Yvette and I, she has a special place in my heart because we spent a lot of time together during the downturn on a development in what can be considered now the West Loop. So Yvette, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone. And at World, I would show my kicks, but they're flip-flops. So I'm sure no one wants to see them right now.
That's all right. The rule on Zoom is just from the waist up. You got to look good. Anything else, it doesn't matter, right? Flip-flops are just fine. Awesome. So we're really excited to have both of you with us today. And so, you know, before we got on camera and started recording, we were talking a little bit about this market right now and kind of how crazy it is, but more importantly, how different it is from kind of any past market that we've been in or are experiencing. So Yvette, tell me a little bit about kind of the conversation we were having and your thoughts on how this market's different.
Thanks, Amy. Well, yeah, I noticed that people keep trying to compare it to around, 2007, 2008, and, how it's just going, or I should say prior to that, and how it's just crazy. But I don't feel like this is a market that we've seen, at least not since I've been in the business, and it's been quite some time. And it's different in the fact that I think just the way that you deal with the different people and the communications and the way that you have to just be very conscious of how you're writing the contracts, the details, the timing, not only just the cost of it, but also the terms. Every piece of it is really important, including the relationships you have with the other agents. It's always important how you interact with the other brokers, but I think it's even more than ever how you do it with all of the multiple offers, the communication, working with them so that it is more of a communication that they prefer truthfully to do this deal. If it's across the table, everything is even versus you and what you're bringing to the table versus someone else.
So with that then, K.C., I love going back to Yvette, you touched on relationships. I love that. K.C., for you, what are some things you're doing when you're fostering relationships between brokers to help give your clients an advantage? Are there specific things you're doing in a multiple offer situation or elsewhere?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, right now, I think relationships are super important. Knowing that the other agent is working with, especially on the buy side now, being so difficult to get a deal under contract, that they are working with somebody that's more experienced, that's been around the block, that has a team of professionals that the buyers will be using and not going to like a Rocket Mortgage or somebody else that's completely like hands off. with all my offers that I send, I really, especially if the other agent doesn't know me, the other broker doesn't know me, I have a little blip about myself. I basically tell them, being in the business for my 18th year of my career, that I will be handling the transaction personally. They will not be pawned off necessarily to, like, for example, a transaction coordinator, that I will be, there if there any speed bumps arise, any issues arise, that I will personally be handling the transaction. And then just treating other brokers with respect. I mean, in this market where it can be cutthroat, I mean, you're on the buy side, it's very frustrating and you feel the frustration for your client, but still remember that that broker still has, you still have to respect that broker. Now, sometimes they don't deserve it, as we all know, but just treating everyone with respect, because we are professionals here trying to, cooperate. And that's what it's all about, is cooperation. So basically treating everyone with respect.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, it is right now such a tough, fast market. And the fact is that there are people who are losing out, right? Not everybody's winning. And so having those relationships are really key. And I love your idea of actually sending an email or an intro about you, your experience, and how you're going to bring the deal to the finish line. So that's awesome. I'm sure other agents are writing that down now is a great thing to do. So we're also having to have conversations, though, with clients in this market. And a lot of times the conversations are tough. Buyers are losing out. You have to make sure you keep their morale up. K.C., what are you seeing and how are you handling a lot of these tough conversations right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough out there, especially buyers getting thrown into this craziness. Really, they're just thrown into the deep end of the pool, right? So I've been really sharing my experience since the new year, really, when everything kind of turned on a dime. I just went through a final walkthrough just now, and that's why I was a few minutes late for this meeting. But that buyer, it was their first offer, but they trusted my experience, and we basically were there for the first showings, and we made the offer that night, but they trusted me to make an above asking price offer. They were asking, I believe, $330. We went in at $345. And this is the first time doing it. As we all know out there as buyers brokers, they have to lose out on a few times before they're willing to do that. So I've been really consistently sharing my experiences with other clients so that they aren't losing out, that they get that home. And so, for example, earlier that we just finished the final walkthrough, they're super thrilled that they did not have to, be put through the ringers to get the home that they loved right off the bat. So just basically sharing my experiences with my buyers out there, managing really that expectation.
That's great, because if we don't manage it, we have no control over what they're going to do. And we're the experts, right? Like you said, K.C., you're the one that has the experience because you've been through this hundreds of times, versus someone that's only bought or sold once, maybe twice, a few times in their lifetime. And certainly they probably haven't experienced this market either. So Yvette, what are the conversations like that you're having with clients? How are those going?
Right. I normally work a lot on the list side, but I mean, this market, I've been working with a lot of buyers as well. And with that, it's tough on the buyers right now. And so one of the things that I think is really important is that you really have all your ducks in a row and you really lay out everything. I mean, I have kind of like a checklist that I go over with them right from the beginning, and make sure they have all the resources. If they need a lender, if they've been already pre-approved, all those things need to be done ahead of time, even before you walk out the door with them. And if you can sit down with them or even have a Zoom call or something, just so you can have that context. A lot of times these days, people are just taking them out and going without knowing anything about them. And you're kind of wasting your time, and you're wasting their time if you do it that way. And a lot of times people are just eager to get them and go. But in order to really make it work and keep that buyer motivated and understand from the beginning what the process is going to be, is how it's going to get to the end. Other than that, a lot of times things come up and they're talking to someone else and they get disillusioned. When you go over it ahead of time and they know, and you're like, I have an attorney. If you need a referral for that, I have referrals for this. If you need an inspection. So you have all those things, and you're literally going over step by step what is going to happen as we go along. And that if we don't get it, this is what we can do. And if we do, this is the other points we do. But that way they're more relaxed. They have confidence in you. Again, we're the people with the knowledge. And it makes the whole process go a lot smoother. And I'm sure that's what K.C. did, which is the reason why when he then at that point were able to tell that person to go over 15,000, they trusted him to say, this is what I need to do in order to get what I want.
So with that, Yvette, you mentioned that you work with a lot of sellers as well. What has the conversation been with them? Because whether they're seeing neighbors sell really quickly and for higher than asking, or whether they're reading headlines, how are you setting expectations with sellers?
I'm pretty straightforward these days. So one, regardless whether this is something I do, regardless of whether I'm very familiar with them, they're a friend, or there's someone I just met, I still go through everything that I'm going to do, only because I don't want them to think about it without them knowing that this is the process. And I still go over what the competitors are. I show what other comps are out there. I also make sure that they know that these are the different steps that we're going to take in order to get it sold, and just say, this is what you need to do and go for it.
Got it. K.C., how about you? Because you touched on buyers. What are the conversations like that you're having with sellers?
Well, really just echoing what Yvette said. I mean, basically lining it all up. I mean, the other thing too is to making sure that the prices are still relatively reasonable. We've all had sellers that are reading all these articles on Reddit or online and basically say, oh, I could get so much for the home. Well, yeah and no. I mean, you have to still price it well. I mean, my recent conversations have been with sellers is just not getting too crazy. I mean, it's okay to get a little crazy when the market's kind of very seller tip towards the seller side. But some of these sellers, they get a little nuts as far as what the numbers are asking. And it'll just, as we know, if the home sits on the market for 2 weeks, you're wondering what's wrong with it already, right? And if we don't get it enough activity because we're just priced completely out, we're not going to get that same kind of result. And so really it's managing sellers' expectations right now too, along with buyers, because they are seeing how active it is. And sometimes they're just trying to get that extra 25 grand or even, sometimes an extra 5 grand to list above. And it may not, we may not have the same results if we, don't manage that expectation correctly as well.
Also to let them know that it is a partnership. I mean, as far as even staging it, to make sure that things are the way it's supposed to be when you're presenting it, when you're showing it, so that they know that, you have your part in order to get this sold as much as I do.
Yeah, I think the key there is really kind of the expectation setting. It's just, it is kind of a crazy market, and it's, the pendulum has swung right now, and it is a seller's advantage, but we know that at some point, it may shift back. One of the other things we were talking about earlier is new brokers in this market. And I was saying that if, a brand new broker's in this market right now, it's kind of like turning on the treadmill, putting it on a level 5, and then trying to jump on while the treadmill is in motion, right? It's moving really fast right now. But I'd love to get from each of you, what is one impactful thing that you can pass on or encourage a new broker to do in this market right now to be successful? And Yvette, let's start with you.
Well, one of the things I would say, and I mentioned it before, and I'm going to be redundant on it, but just relationships, not only with other brokers, but also, working with your clients as well. And realizing that a lot of times new brokers feel like they don't have the business, they don't know where to get it from. And what I'll do on a regular basis still is I literally will just take a piece of paper and write down every single person I know who has potential. And you're surprised literally how many different people, oh, they just had a baby, they'll probably be moving. Oh, they just got a job promotion, maybe they want something different. Oh, they just decided to get something someplace else, they might want to move further that direction. All these different things, and all social gatherings are always potential to find different people, whether they're sellers or buyers. You never know where they're going to come from. And you'd be surprised how many different people, and that they don't know this is what you do, and that you have to kind of put it out there a little bit. And they like hearing the fact that that's what you're doing. And the free advice, and that free advice goes into, sure, you know what, I can just put something together for you to let you know, just if you want to know what your home is valued at. And send it out there. And before you know it, they're kind of communicating with you, and you may have a new listing.
That's great advice. What I love that you said there was that you wrote it down. Like sometimes I feel like we're running in so many different directions, but to actually sit down and even as easy as if it's not in your CRM, but just even writing down all of those people, because people will pop into your head when you take the time to kind of focus on it, right? So really great advice. All right, KC, what words of wisdom are you going to pass on to our newer brokers out there?
Yeah, I love talking to newer brokers. I'm the oldest of my generation as far as my first cousins and my brothers and sisters. I always kind of have this big brother thing going on in my mind type of thing. So I've talked to a lot of younger brokers, and I really try to plant the seed that let them know that, hey, the housing market's just like any market. You've only been thrown into a very appreciating market right now, but you also have to think about what if it's not? What if it's a down market? I mean, for the last almost 10 years now, we're seeing real estate just really kind of like be on the upswing. Well, obviously, like Yvette and I, we've been in business since '04. We've seen it when it's really bad. So I always tell brokers that you have to also think about when it's a slow market too. I mean, what if the market turns on a dime in a couple of years, or God forbid, later in this year when all of a sudden, like, oh, who shut the water off? And now you're have a product that has compromises that you're trying to sell, or potentially on the buy side, having a buyer buy something that has too many compromises, but you're trying to get them under contract because it's so crazy. Well, sometimes you also have to think about what happens if they're stuck with this product that's in a slower market, and you have to think about what the negatives are. So not just put yourselves in the shoes right now in this market, but also put yourself in the shoes when you're a broker trying to represent a buyer or a seller in a slower market. And how would you advise then? And just kind of looking at the big picture, because again, it is a market, and markets have ups and downs, as we know in the stock market, as we knew like last winter, when things were kind of like, what's happening? Why isn't anything happening, I should say. So just looking at the big picture.
Great advice from both of you. KC, I love that. I remember when I was in real estate in the downturn, I had a 4th floor walk up on Ashland. In 2008, that thing was not moving.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I had this same situation. First time out with this buyer, they really loved this 4th floor walk up again across the street from the L that needed a ton of work, and they were asking a huge premium. And I said, there's 2 big compromises here, and that a lot of buyers will not want to take on if it is a down market. You're interested in it because it is kind of there's no choice. But what if you have the choice? You're not going to pick a 4th floor walk up across the street from the L. That's it.
You got to find the positive in it. It made me think of one I had that was across from a cemetery. And
quiet.
And that's what I said. I said, your neighbors will always be quiet. It's very peaceful. And they bought it. I was on the sell side.
Was great. Thank you too for sharing that. And Yvette, you touched on relationships, which we know is the core of the business, but I think sometimes we get so busy or transactional. And I think if new agents, to your advice, if new agents just start thinking through their pipeline and, like Amy said, sitting down and really concentrating on it, business will come as long as we're in contact with them. And Yvette, you shared a moment ago before we started filming about how people are reaching out that you didn't anticipate. How did you make that happen?
It's just interesting. It's keeping up with different things, social media, and being conscious of what you put on there. You never know where it's going to come from. I just updated my website a little bit more and finding people who are just literally searching through different people and reaching out and looking for it. And you'd be surprised about that, because you figure everyone knows at least 10, 15 real estate agents. But you would be surprised how many people do not have somebody that they're working with. And I think it's very assumptive sometimes that we just think, oh, that everyone already has somebody they're working with. They don't. And they may not be happy with them. A person who just reached out to me, they've had their place on the market for a year. Wow. Has not sold. It is the lowest price out of everything that they have in that area. And they said, I need someone new. And they are looking, and it's truthfully in this market, I am surprised that it hasn't been the lowest on there too. So there's something that one person's not doing that you can maybe fill that void and give them a fresher look on it.
Yep. Time for a broker change, right?
Time for opportunity.
Yes, I love that you have your mug. That is so awesome. Well, Yvette, K.C., we thank you guys so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate you had great words of advice for all of our agents out there.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for joining us this morning for coffee. Fill up your cup. Hopefully it's in your opportunity mug. K.C., we'll start looking into opportunity sneakers for you. And make it a great Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, team. Make it a great day.
Bye-bye.